What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining me. We are on the February 2022 newsletter, and the most common question I probably get is, Nick, how's the real estate market doing? So therefore, I have rebranded our monthly newsletter to How's the Real Estate Market? So let's get started. And as we usually get started, it is with the national spotlight. So let's see what's going on in kind of zooming out and looking at the bigger picture of things. Home ownership as a hedge against inflation. There's a lot of talk in the news about inflation and how that's affecting everything from grocery prices all the way to gas prices and our daily lives. So how does housing compare when dealing with inflation? Let's take a look. Real estate, believe it or not, is actually one of the time-honored inflation hedges. It's a tangible asset, and those tend to hold their value when inflation reigns, unlike paper assets. More specifically, as prices rise, so do property values. So something to be mindful as a homeowner of what does that mean? And here is a visual for you. Home ownership as a hedge against inflation. Looking all the way back at the 70s, 80s, and 90s, you can see that even when inflation was relatively high in the 70s and 80s, home appreciation was neck and neck in the 80s and higher even in the 70s. Let's now take it into present times. And the last 2 years specifically, it has it mapped out. Inflation was just over 1% in 2020, and 9.2% was home appreciation. Mind you, this is on a national average, not a California average right now. And last year, 2021, inflation started rising on all of us. Cost of living went up, but home appreciation absolutely exploded for 2021, which is a positive for those of you that own your homes. So this gives you a visual, so you don't have to try to digest a bunch of verbiage that doesn't make a lot of sense. So hopefully that helps paint a very realistic picture as to how home ownership is a benefit, even when inflation is the talk of the land right now. As mortgage rates rise, we do expect some moderation in housing demand, causing house price growth to temper. I want to make mention that they will decelerate. They, meaning home sales, will decelerate, right? And that does not mean you're going to lose home value, right? So something to be aware of. However, the combination of a large number of entry-level homeowners facing a shortage of entry-level inventory of homes for sale should keep the housing market competitive. Okay, in 2022, we expect purchase originations to grow from 1.9 trillion in 2021 to 2.1 trillion in 2022, while refinance activity is anticipated to decrease from 2.7 trillion in 21 to 1.2 trillion in 2022. Okay, so what that's saying in a nutshell is it's not going to be as beneficial to refinance with interest rates creeping up, right? That's the whole purpose of refinancing, is to get a lower interest rate or a big reason, understandably, right? With that being said, they're not expecting, they meaning the experts are not expecting a big slowdown for those looking to purchase a home because of the appreciation that homes have over the long term, and more specifically over the short term. So just something to be aware of as we move forward into this new year. Another thing to consider with why and how a home can be a benefit with inflation. A fixed rate mortgage allows you to maintain the biggest portion of housing expenses at the same payment, right? That's what a fixed rate mortgage does for you. Your payment's not going to fluctuate year to year. Sure, property taxes will rise, especially those of us in California, and they may creep up, but your monthly housing payment remains the same. That's certainly not the case if you're renting, right? And that's just the hard reality there. So let's dip into the rental market a little bit. And again, this is on a national scale, not specifically a California scale, but rent increase is greater than inflation most years. Here again, I give you a visual so you can see in the blue line, we're looking at the inflation rate, and the green line is the rate of rent in which that increases or decreases year to year. So that's dating it all the way back to 1973. So that gives us a good chunk of time to look at how do these reflect each other. So for those of you renting, know that you're in a tough spot, obviously. It's hard to save up for a home, obviously. I know I'm stating the obvious. Nonetheless, that's the importance of how can you find a way to become a homeowner? How can you get over that hump when it comes to getting that initial down payment and bringing those needed funds for cash to close? If you need help in that area, reach out to me. Nonetheless, that deviates off of our information here. One thing I did want to bring back home to you is what's expected from a rent increase by 2023, by the end of 2023. This gives you an idea geographically of what you can expect, and this study was done by USC. So by the end of 2023, you can expect, if you live in the Inland Empire, an increase of $241. We'll go from back to front here. Ventura County, over $300 increase by the end of 2023. Orange County, over $400, over $400 for those of you living there. You can anticipate that increase. And those of us in LA County, over $250. So you can either plan to get yourself into a house if you're not already, or you can plan for your rent to increase by those margins. Either way, that's your reality that you're looking at, right? So at least it's forewarning you if you haven't already come across this information, and it's something to budget for. Either way, are you budgeting for a house or budgeting for that rental increase? In which case, this at least gives you a ballpark to shoot for, knowing where you live. Let's just briefly touch on mortgage rates. They hit their highest levels recently since March 2020, leading to the slowest pace of refinance activity in over 2 years. So you might hear some headlines say, oh my gosh, refinance is down 200%. Headlines usually do more to terrify than they do clarify. So something to be mindful of. Of course, refinance rates are going to go down when interest rates rise. Why? Because it's not as lucrative to refinance unless you absolutely have to, or maybe because you want to pull equity out of your home, right? So just be mindful of the context and the bigger picture, understanding that interest rates are naturally going to affect negatively the refinance market. How rising mortgage rates impact your monthly payment. For those of you that are prospective buyers right now, be mindful of the 1 to 10% rule that I have noted there on the right-hand side. And it's this: for every 1% interest rates change, whether it's higher or lower, it's going to affect your buying power by about 10%. Here's what that looks like in black and white. You see in the bottom left corner, an interest rate of 2.75, which is realistic a year ago. For a $400,000 home, it would get you about a $1,600 payment. For interest rates to rise just 1%, to have that same payment, you need to get into a home worth $360,000. That gives you 10%, right? 10% of $40,000 knocks off to $360,000. So when you're trying to navigate this space, Nick, I want to wait until prices come down. Okay, fair point. Just be mindful that interest rates may go up, which affects negatively your ability to buy, right? It means you're going to only qualify for a house payment, or to keep that house payment, you're going to have to get in at a lower price point. So something to be aware of for those of you that are saying, Nick, I think I need to wait this one out and wait for prices to come down. Just be mindful, interest rates might climb, and that means your ability to buy, unfortunately for you, goes down. Current mortgage rate compared to the last 5 decades, not years, decades. Yes, they're creeping up, but before you worry too much and freak out too much, here's some perspective. Here's some perspective of what the average rate looked like in the 70s and 80s and 90s. So even though the news is going to talk about, guys, interest rates are rising, right? Let's keep in mind, it's not what we've seen in years past. So relatively speaking, things still become relatively affordable in comparison to years past. So something to be mindful of as you're trying to say, what does that mean? Are we really in that bad of a situation? Let's talk about the foreclosure market, because that's often a topic that gets brought up. Well, I'm going to wait for all these foreclosures to hit the market, and it's going to flood the market, and it'll drive prices down, and then I can buy. Well, here's where we sit. And this, mind you, this is not including the last 3 months of 2021. So this is going up into Q3, which is about September. This is taking into all the numbers up until that time frame. Okay. So in 2017, you can see that foreclosed homes were in around 300,000. Okay. Now you can see in 2021 through quarter three, right? So left off 3 months. Nonetheless, we're just over 29,000. What does that mean? That means our market can sustain the unfortunate events that foreclosures bring. It can sustain many, right? So we're not at a tipping point, is what I'm trying to get at. We're not at a point to say, guys, those of you that may be waiting, you may have some inventory coming your way. Not the case with foreclosures. So just be mindful that what happened in the mid 2000s is not set up to replicate itself here in the early 2020s. And here's the last picture. Foreclosure activity at an all-time low. This gives you a visual. Again, you don't have to go through a bunch of words to figure this one out. Look at 08, 09, 2010. That was really the middle of that housing bubble and us feeling the effects of it. You look at us right now in 2020 and 2021, we're at historical lows for those that have had to go into the foreclosure process, which is a very healthy thing, and meaning we're in a very healthy space within the housing industry. So again, don't be thinking you're waiting for a lot of foreclosures to hit the market, because they're just not set up to do that, right? Lending practices have increased significantly and has been a positive in this regard. So overall, I do think that 2022 will bring another strong year for housing, albeit a little bit higher mortgage rates. And we do think home sales will continue to rise and actually reach a 16-year high in 2022. And that was declared by McClare Bolton Smith there of CoreLogic. Let's now look at the state of California and run through that. I shared this with you last month. I know I wanted to revisit it because we all hear the key terms of it's competitive and it's crazy. Well, let's paint a picture of what competitive and crazy looks like. In 2021, we had 70% of all listings had multiple offers. And on average of those, each home listing had about 5 to 6 offers for those listings. So that's how competitive. That's what competitive means. That's what crazy means. Were there instances of over 100 offers? Yes. Are there still? Yes. But that gives you an average. Also, that one on the left, bottom left, says percent of homes sold above asking price. We have sold over 50% of our inventory, over 50% of our listings for 16 consecutive months, including January 2022, have gone above list price. That's what competitive means. That's what crazy means when you hear these terms. That gives you some objective information to be mindful that 16 months in a row, over 50% of all listings have sold above listing price. That is a competitive market. And then days on market. You can see there, dating back to January 2017, we're hovering in around 15 to 20 days of days on market. We even bumped it up to 35 days there on a couple of different occasions between 2017 and 2019, there for a 2-year span. It wasn't uncommon to have that standing inventory. Now, January 22, average days on market was 12 days. In January 21, it was 11 days. So that's what competitive means. That's what crazy means in today's real estate market. You might have heard, gosh, there's no inventory. Let me correct that. There is inventory because we've had record sales in home sales, especially in 2021. So you can't have no inventory and have record sales. So what does that mean? It means things are moving quick. That's why days on market is so few days, is because buyers are ready to make decisions. They have their pre-qualification letter, they have all cash, and they have proof of funds. They have all of their pieces needed to make a transaction work in a timely fashion to pull the trigger. That's what that means, okay? And that's why things are so competitive with multiple offers. You have to know comfortably how high are you willing to go in certain situations. How much above the asking price are you willing to go? And to have a clear train of thought is a very important peace of mind to know to navigate this market successfully right now. Here's something else I shared last month that I want to share again this month. More homes sold at over $1 million than there were homes sold at $500,000. And you think, wow, is that where we are? That is where we are. Here's my reasoning behind it and my rationale. People wanted space. during COVID, people came to the conclusion, I need office space if I'm going to be home so much. I need office space if my work turned remote. I need a little bit of a gym area to be healthy, stay healthy, to live in at home because gyms closed down, right? We just need more space because our family grew. I think that's what those numbers tell me, and that piece of information tells me is a lot of individuals decided I need more space. And what comes at the cost of needing or wanting more space? Money, right? There's a cause and effect. So something to be mindful of. But just a fun fact for you: more $1 million homes sold than $500,000 homes sold there in 2021. So something to be mindful of as you try to make decisions for your family moving forward. One reason for sales decline is a tight supply. I referenced this earlier. This is months of inventory. Without too much technical real estate jargon, it means we don't have many homes for sale. But again, that's standing inventory. So as you can see, we're at a very low level right now. They say a neutral market, meaning it's not buyers, it's not a seller's market, starts in around 4.5 to 5 months, right? You can see for a number of years, really, we haven't even been at 4 months. So California is a competitive space, right? And if people didn't want to live here, we would have our inventory levels at a lot higher levels. That's just reality, right? So for all the moving out of California you might hear about, reality is we don't have a lot of standing inventory because people want to be here. People are still willing to buy. So that gives you some objective information again to share with your family and or friends when real estate comes up. Prospective buyers, what you need to know. I touched on this earlier, pre-approval. You need to have that pre-qualification and pre-approval from a lender saying, hey, so-and-so is good for X to make this purchase. Otherwise, you're going to be left behind. These ideas to purchase a home is always just going to be, it's going to start in your head and end in your head because it's never going to come to fruition. You have to have a pre-approval letter from a lender. You need to know what your budget is and be prepared to move quick, right? So it's good to think things through before you're actually in the situation. If you want to make quick decisions in the moment, you need to be able to be put in situations that are low stakes and take you out of the moment so you can think clearly. So you can say, you know what? We're now in a multiple offer situation. We got countered. What are we willing to go up to? You don't want to be thinking about that for the first time in that moment, right? So know what your budget is. Be prepared to move quick. What will you do if there's a mismatch in price? Meaning, what will you do if you were really set on a 4-bed, 2-bath home, but that to get that, you have to pay $1.4 million, and you've only been pre-approved for $1 million. What are you going to do if there's a mismatch in price? Are you willing to drive a little bit farther? Are you willing to give up one of those bedrooms to get into something, right? Do you have a family member or a friend that can come in on the back end to help you out with that difference? There's different ways to solve that problem. Nonetheless, what are you going to do if there's a mismatch in price? Things to think through before you get in the moment of, right? Understand the reason why home ownership is desirable. There's appreciation. There's a fixed rate for those of us that get locked into a fixed rate mortgage, right? You have a tax incentive for up to 10 years as a tax write-off, right? You have the privacy piece, of course, that so many of us want and to a degree need, right? So really, owning a home is more about the lifestyle and feeling safe. And I think COVID, if it did nothing else, it really showed how important that is to us when we have to spend so much time there. So just wanted to share that for those of you that may be prospective buyers and you say, well, why should I be a homeowner? Or what are the benefits of being a homeowner? That sheds some light on that idea. Last thing I want to end with here, and that is lean on a professional as you navigate the space, because real estate is hard. And I can tell you, I am uniquely qualified and prepared to help you get it right the first time. Lean on a professional because what is your time worth? What is your peace of mind worth to know that it's going to get done right? Versus say, no, I can do that on my own, but now you're trying to work a full-time job, you have a family, and you got now a house situation to deal with, right? Lean on a professional like myself to give you time to have a buyer consultation so you can be in those low-stake environments, but you're being asked to consider certain situations that will present themselves as you navigate your real estate space, right? And that's what I provide for anybody that I work with up front is that buyer consultation, that opportunity to get to know you, to understand what is important to you and why is it important to you. And now we can talk about some of these scenarios that will present themselves, whether it be the negotiation phase, whether it be figuring out a budget. Maybe it's you're not qualified yet, but let's figure out a plan for you to qualify a year from now, 6 months from now. I had to do that at one point in time. So those are things to think through. Lean on professionals to help you navigate your individual experiences. Let's now look at the local spotlight. And to summarize things here pretty quick, you can see I have given you a comparison in La Cañada, Pasadena, Monrovia, San Gabriel, Claremont specifically, because they all land in the San Gabriel Valley. But you can take a look at that on your own time. That just gives you what does a 3-bedroom cost based on where I want to live in the San Gabriel Valley. So just gave you those fun little graphics there. Homes sold through the San Gabriel Valley, did a comparison. Where were we at in January 22 compared to February 2022? On the left is last month, and on the right is this month. And you can scroll through that and look at numbers if that's the space you like to be in more than not. So it gives you condos, and I also share with you townhomes. Guys, it was a pleasure to share this information with you. Again, I love sharing objective information to help us steer our subjective decisions. My goal is to help you build a happier, more proud, and accomplished version of yourself through real estate. That's my goal. So I'm here for you. I'm here for anybody you may know. I never will be too busy to not help a referral. Maybe you're not looking to buy, but your sister is, an aunt, a friend. Maybe it's someone relocating from another state. Feel free to reach out with any questions or concerns. I'm here. You can also reach me within the social media world. They're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and just starting up a podcast. So feel free to follow. Hopefully we can educate, and entertain a little bit, and I'll get a little bit better. So until then, take care. Have a good one.